What's up, guys? Jon Sintes, Cutternation Baseball Podcast. I'm very excited today. My man, Bradley Roberto, we miss him. He has left us a little bit, but not in the complete form. He and I will always be connected, and it's very easy for us to have a conversation. And so I think that's what our goal is here today. We're going to try it a little bit different way. Normally, we live stream this on Instagram. So the fact that we're going to be able to record this and edit it maybe might be good or bad, but whatever. That's not really how Brad and I live it. So, it's been a really long time. I've been looking forward to this. I always enjoy, connecting with you and talking baseball / life. And, we both have, some awesome questions that we want to break out on each other. So, Brad, first of all, thanks for your time and, how you been?
I've been good. It's been a long year for sure. And, I think, going and leaving for a season, this is kind of what you expect and kind of what you want. It was a lot of ups, a lot of downs, but it was a great learning experience. And I think for not just for me, but for like the whole team, it's great that, before we started this, pretty much the pro squad came back on the same day and they're in the facility and we got to kind of catch up before we started recording this. And
are you serious, boys?
It's going to be great watch when we get them all on this and hear about what they did this year, because all of our pros pretty much had a great year. And in one way or another, they leveled up. And it's going to be great hearing about their experiences and want to talk about mine too, being able to finally share what we've been doing, not just in training, but in life. And, talking about what we're going through and what we're learning as we go. And I think that's something that we could really share with the people that follow us.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You said it the other day. It was interesting, and I was thinking about it. I had to run over to YouTube and verify it. It's been years since really that we've told the story. And,
Right.
in marketing, there is story fatigue. People forget. You have to remind them, how does a Ferrari or a Louis Vuitton continue to be a brand for this long? And that's what Cutternation is going to be. And even though we are not physically together, I'm excited to continue this part because it's always fun getting your opinion on things because I'd love to go through. Too bad we didn't completely go through the track, man, and put your at-bats in there because we could probably have a history of you and me over the past 4 years, but nobody has more at-bats in a lifetime versus you than I do from there. And that's a fun thing to say out loud. But, I used to say that every day here in the gym. I used to be like, hey, the hitting guy over there is the toughest out I have faced in a very, very long time currently. And that was 2 days ago. So I hope that you understand what you're learning is important.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I'm definitely going to have to keep coming back out there just so I can keep growing that total. But it was fun to, see all the hitters face you, too. You call yourself the sparring partner, which is a perfect sparring partner because I still do this, throughout the whole season. I was able to compare every single pitcher I faced to you. And if they weren't better than you, then in my mind, they were trash. So, and it gave me a lot of confidence. Yeah,
I appreciate
it gave me a lot. Absolutely. And it gave me a lot of confidence going into my at-bats and going into the year and seeing what I was facing. And I'm sure all of other hitters that experienced their season this year can probably say the same thing.
That makes me feel good. I tell people all the time, what Brad and I have done has been, the yin and yang on either side, the pitcher versus the hitter. But because neither one of us had egos about the process, it was just reps and then keep going, right? Obviously at the beginning I had the advantage because Brad didn't have a lot of, live reps inside of it. I have the home field advantage. I have the I built the mound, I built the cage, I built all the stuff. And then, over time, you're using a pro velocity bat against me in a live situation and still barely lost.
Yeah.
And that was one of my favorite videos. Check that out on YouTube on there too. And the competition side is the thing that you and I always vibe on too. It's very important for us to compete and not surrender, right? I even think about, there's a couple tip foul ball cuts that were just devastating to you, and even to me, every time you barreled it, I was just like, well, I'm doing my job, So I tell all the guys, if I'm doing my job, you're barreling me up. But I'm telling you right now, it's not going to be easy until that,
Right.
What was could you think about, is there any memory that you have of one of the fights? What's your most memorable fight between you and me?
That's a good question. Definitely the one where I went like 1 for 7 with 4 strikeouts. And I broke my bat, on the ground. I don't think I've ever struck out 4 times in a day. I don't know if they were all off you. I definitely struck out at least twice off you. I do remember there was one time, I don't know if that was the same day or not, but that was like, that was the first time you struck me out twice in a day. And then there was another time, which was more recent, which is in the new facility, where you struck me out on a changeup for the first time. And we like both knew it instantly. Like, that's the first time you struck me out on that pitch. And he goes, yeah, that's the first, that was the first time.
Yeah.
That was the first time. It's always cutter down and in, backdoor, back foot curveball. Usually that's the one where you strike me out on, I swing over it. But the changeup down and away, that was the first time I swung over it and missed it.
Yeah, I mean, changeup's my worst pitch. You know what I mean? But you got to throw it as a lefty, and then you just forced me to get good at it. And now I've got the changeup that runs and the split that dives, and you made me go down the turning the ball to the right instead of the left for me.
Right.
You know what I mean? Rabbit hole. And now I've spun further. That's what's made me, I feel like, even better for what I've been trying to do with training. I mean, I know that we know that the hitters, when they come in here, and we had a new guy come in. He's actually coming in tomorrow. He's going to Mexicali, and he experienced advanced BP for the first time. And he's got a little time with the Twins, big dude, local guy. And he's like, you can just do that. And I think when Siemens was there, I think I threw like 150 pitches in like, I don't know, it was like 45 minutes or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
And he was like, you can just throw and throw and throw and throw. I'm like, bro, we're 45 feet away. I'm on an edge of a mountain, so I get to use a little momentum. I'm not trying. This is so easy. I'm just like flipping it to you in there. He was like, yeah, but it says you're throwing like 70. And I'm like, I throw harder than 70. I hope you know. This is still low effort, dude. So even those little things right in there have been really important in there too. So it's always fun to get in there, and talk to those guys right in there. Mm-hmm. I've got my list here. I'd love to jump in on one of these questions, but let's do it. I'm going to go with one of the first ones here. In your early years of baseball, what moment, first made you believe that you wanted to pursue this path?
That's a good question. Maybe my first year of All-Stars, when it was definitely before my 12-year-old year. I was definitely before that. It was definitely really early when I definitely fell in love with the game and like, okay, this is what I want to do. Right. And then over the years, it kind of just always been that. I remember my 12-year-old year, everyone was kind of talking about like, oh, well, what are you going to do if baseball doesn't work out? Or what's your backup plan? And I was like the only one that said, I don't really have a backup plan. Like baseball, this is it. Maybe there's plan A, B, and C, but it's always goal A first. I'm changing the plan, but I'm not really changing the goal. And that has always been consistent with me and still is, even as I get older, right? And then maybe not where I want to be exactly in my playing career, but I'm still progressing. That's what I really like about my career, that I'm still moving forward. Like I didn't get drafted, I didn't get signed, right? I'm not coming back down to indie ball, right? I'm still moving up from where I'm at. I'm still progressing. And I'm still being able to progress not only my skills, but my body, my mind, and just keep moving forward and keep finding ways to make baseball my life and keep pursuing the same goal that I set out since I was a little kid.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, I mean, I remember you immediately brought me back to like backup plan. I remember telling teachers, like, you're going to play baseball, you need a backup plan. And I was like, yeah, I got a 4.0. I'm not worried about that. I can get a job whenever. Like, I knew that, Yeah. And I remember like I got accepted to some big time universities, and I remember telling my parents, like, I'm not going to go. Like, what do you want to do? I'm like, I want to play baseball. So like, I remember I graduated. I didn't have any offers. School ended, and I remember I jumped on a travel team that just happened to get called. I got a job at a Circuit City, and I remember just being like so depressed and being like, I'm not going to play college baseball. Like, how is this going to happen? And so my dad made some calls, and then we got a hold of some people, and they were playing in a perfect game tournament in Atlanta, and I went up there and just dominated, really. But I was playing with some of the best players I had ever played with at that moment in my life. Like everybody was a D1 guy on the team. And like even after the tournament, I remember asking my dad, and I was like, if these guys are all D1 guys, why are they playing? And my dad's like, you gotta get better. You gotta play. And I was like, oh, and I remember them coming up to me and be like, dude, you got 5 pitches. Like, you're gross. And I'm like, you hit a ball 470, dude. Like, you're nasty,
Yeah.
And there's some big time guys that were on that team that I played with that are in very, very high levels of baseball, even to today. Mm-hmm. But I'll never forget that. Like getting out of the high school situation that I was in that I considered serious, but maybe out of the 15 guys on the team, maybe one other guy considered serious too. And then when you get to college baseball, or even in the summer when you're playing with guys that actually want to be there and actually want to win, it was just a whole other thing. And of course, it was run by like one of the players' uncles, right? And like they even told me, they were like, "This guy
especially travel back then,
Yeah, for sure. This guy's like, he just writes the lineup and just do what you do. Doesn't matter." Yeah. So I remember like looking down at him the whole time, and he like tried just I'm a traditional step in the box, right foot in the box, look down there, and he looks at me and he's like, "What?" I'm like. What do you mean? He's like, hit the ball. I'm like, oh, okay. No sense. Got it. You know what I mean? Nice. So, that's just that version of baseball. So, all right, cool. I love that, man.
You bring up a good point. One, like there's 2 good points in that little story right there. Is one I'm going to bring up is you talked about your parents, right? Telling them how, like, I just want to play baseball, right? And it was kind of the same with my parents too. And they're super supportive of that. I mean, they knew that even my dad was talking about, they knew that I needed to pursue this fully, and that even when I was done with it, I would have no problem switching gears and going to something else. But the parents, like when you see an athlete's parents, that's a big indicator on their potential for success or not. But yes, it might not be completely necessary, but it is a very huge indicator, and just given that freedom to pursue whatever you want fully. And I think us having really supportive parents definitely give us that green light to go and do what we wanted.
It makes me yeah. Go ahead. No.
Oh no, I was going to move on to the second point that you had that I picked up from that story, was just being around better ball players and better people like that were may or may not have been ahead of you, but like we're just on the same path as you, right? Out of college, right? That was something that I really looked for in my next phase of training, was being around people who have been further than me or were better than me, and just being in an environment to really make me just level up myself, and Cutternation was able to do that for sure, easily.
Appreciate that, man. Appreciate that. Yeah, it makes me want to have a little PSA with the parents about like, and I've met your dad. I think I've met your mom too. I don't know. Well, I met aunts and uncles, dad's brother. Right, I've met a lot of the family. All right,
right, and for sure.
Aunt and uncles, multiple states. You know what I mean? Like, great family, dude. Great family, and I see that. In my family in Florida, I resonate with that. We have a lot of the similarities from that right in there. And my family was always the same thing. They were always saying, "Why not? Go ahead, go do your thing." So you parents out there that like. There are 9-year-olds that want to be big leaguers, and you can totally tell them to be realistic, right? But isn't it more fun to like have them be a little bit obsessive and dedicated to a process?
Yeah.
Like I was.
Why not?
I guess my mom tells the story, but I'm sure you did similar things to this. But like, when I was in middle school, my mom taught at the middle school that I went to, and she always had to be early, right? And it just didn't take me that long to get better. And like this is pre-phones, and I wasn't really allowed to watch TV in the morning before school. So like I would just go outside and hit off the tee. So like every morning I'd try to see if I could hit like 30 or 40 balls. And I'd just have a little net, and I'd go out there and smack, and might have my lunch and my backpack ready to go. And my mom would knock on the window. When she'd knock on the window, I'd have like one more swing left. Boom. Put the balls up, go get in the car, go to school. And I don't really hear those stories these days from these kids, and there's parents that we have that go the other mile, right? We got some guys here that train with us that are, taking the kid every day to do defense and arm care and hit ladders and do stuff. And it's a process for parents to set aside time to do that. But like, dude, I threw a football to the side of my house with my dad so much. And that definitely just throwing that often helped me have a strong arm, you know?
Yeah, heck yeah. I think parents nowadays have more access to information and access to processes that get them and access to training. So, kudos to them are the ones that put in the effort for the kids, because really it is up to them. Like a kid can't really do the things unless their parents allow them to, and they obviously can't pay for training, or get taken to practice or do stuff like that. I'm sure there's a bunch of kids out there that do it on their own at home for the ones that don't have the resources and stuff like that. But it is good to see the parents that are fully supportive of their kid pursuing something they love, because you do get a lot out of just the pursuit of it. Whether you reach the goal or not, you get so much out of just going for it, and you get a lot of confidence and you learn a bunch of things from it. So
Yeah, one of my favorite things that I felt like I learned, and I want to ask your opinion about this, is but like how to be actually dedicated to a thing, to one idea for years.
Right.
Years, you know?
Yep.
It is definitely something that doesn't happen very often, and it's not really taught, and baseball is a thing that has an end goal that, like, yeah, if you're good enough and you keep going at it, then you can make money from it at all kinds of different levels and aspects. It's not always about the premium job. We had pro guys in here today too, talking about going to the DR, talking about going to get tested. Love that. Love that.
Love
Dude,
it.
if I can go there and dominate, and they see that changes my whole value. You are 100% right. That is how it works. I think challenging people like that, and the parents being able to do that, is there's so much cloudiness and grayness of like what the direction is, the title is kind of important, but it really depends if you're like top 10 players. And we got a couple kids here that are top 10 in the country. And if you're top 10 in the country, then you go on the circuit, go make a name for yourself, do your thing. If you're not top 10, you should be hitting off the tee in the morning before you go to school every day. So you figure it out.
I used to, since we didn't have a net or like a backyard, we just had an apartment. So I set up like a comforter in my garage and I hit wiffle balls into it.
See, there you go. I knew you did something. Yeah, dude. People have this obsessive thing. Like I was talking to a parent the other day, asking him about, do you think an obsessive kid would be bad? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, what about this? Like, kid's obsessed with hitting the ball. Is that a problem? Oh, no, that's different. I'm like, that's the same brain function. He's just more engaged and entertained with this process.
Absolutely. The Japanese have a term for it where they only focus on one thing forever, and I don't forget what the word's called, but it's a whole philosophy on just mastering one thing. And I think that's why you can see it's really prevalent now that the quality of their things are just better, because whether it's baseball or not, like I think it was a guy who made soba noodles that I saw it on, and all he does is soba noodles, and he makes really good fucking noodles. But that's all he does is just mastering that. And so I think we can really learn from that, on just taking one thing and taking it to extraordinary levels instead of doing a bunch of other things and have it be average to mediocre.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, skill development inside of the direction that you are is, the better you can be across the board to all the components of the process, the better you're going to make it,
Right. 100%.
So baseball is baseball game. Baseball is a game of failure as much as success. Some people call it a game of success. Other people call it a game of failure. What's your view on that? And was there a pivotal moment in your career, or success or pivotal, that you feel like either way made you go in a direction?
I think both can make you like level up, right? Obviously, when you succeed, you kind of want to build on that. You want to take that in and keep and hold on to that, just to build confidence and keep stacking on those wins. But then obviously there's the failure that you can either use to level yourself up or discourage you. same thing with success too. You can let it get to your head and think, "Oh, I'm good enough. I'm good enough. I'm good enough." But then obviously we know that in baseball and in life that you're going to get humbled and you're going to run into some adversity. So I think baseball is more of a game of failure than it is success, but it makes those successes like that much better. And more specifically, right? Okay, success. I had a lot of success early on in my career. Obviously, winning the Lily World Series was a huge success for me, right? And for me, I can either take that and be satisfied with and content with that, but I never was. I was like, okay, this was great, probably still top 3 moments of my baseball career, but I want to do more than that in baseball. And that kind of pushed me to keep going. And then one more of failure was getting cut in college. But I was at a really good school, so I kind of understood why I got cut. But in my head, it's like, okay, I know I can be better than these guys. And I worked my ass off to do it and then put up the numbers to show that, like, okay, that me proving to myself that I can do that was huge for me, because now then I took it into my post-college career, my pro career, where I saw even more failure, a lot more rejection, a lot more, I got released twice this year, but I was able to, like, okay, I've been here before, right? So now what am I going to do about it? Like, okay, now I just got to figure out how I'm going to get better and just keep going. And then eventually now it made the success of this year that I had that much better, and now I can build onto that success going into next year.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There's major moments that happen, that shape you,
Yeah. What were those for you? Do you have any of those?
I've been working on some, due to my addiction to ChatGTP, I've been working on some stories and some things and some ideas and some stuff. And what's cool about my Instagram and what my parents have done is I have a lot of photos and videos of just me that, like, if I look at the video or watch the photo, I can almost like go to that place in my brain and
Right.
start thinking about it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And like the earliest one that I have is like, I was really good in Little League. I threw a no-hitter in the 12U qualifying first game of districts, right? To go through that process. Everybody wants to be a Brad Roberto and get to the show. And right after I threw a no-hitter, I remember just dominating, right? And then we got blown out of the water the next 2 games. Just blown out of the water. And it really bummed me out. And then we got done, and then I'll never forget, like, we got done on like a Sunday. Monday, my dad told me that he signed me up for some 13U thing, some league, and it starts this weekend. And I remember being like, what? And he's like, yeah, it's not over.
Yeah.
We're going into fall ball. You're 13 now. You need to get used to it. We're going into middle school. And that was the first time I was like, but we just got, and he was like, doesn't matter. Life keeps going. You just got you're older. It's time to get, there's absolutely no reason for you to sit here and mope about it and figure it out. And so that was kind of cool. And then I remember, like, it just really kind of got me into like, all right, well, let's just go throw the football and get back to training. And I didn't know, I wasn't even saying training. I was just saying throwing back then. I was just saying, got me, okay, let's go throw. Like, that's all it was. And I remember that was kind of cool. And then I remember in middle school, my 8th grade year, right after I kind of like I felt like I was really, really good at baseball. We got a brand new baseball coach, and the guy had a tryout, and my tryout was shit. I don't remember what happened. He made like 1 ground ball, and I think I sailed it or something, like but like we didn't even warm up. Like the whole thing felt weird to me. Like it wasn't like a normal process we did for. We didn't like stretch. We didn't warm up. He literally rolled the balls out and was like, all right, go to short. And then I remember I was like, I threw it. It felt bad. Like everybody was bad. And so he just evaluated everybody on that. And then I was like, instead of playing shortstop and leading off like I did my whole life, I was playing right field and hitting 9th. And I remember being like, what is going on? My dad was just like, he thinks you suck. And I was like, oh,
let's go, Pete.
That's weird, And my did a good job of that, of like, putting it in front of me and stuff right in there. So yeah, it was interesting, just analyzing both of us. Both of us went to pain points, which is probably how we're motivated more rather than by the successes, because like even in high school, I remember throwing a no-hitter and then like didn't feel like it was a big deal, you know what I mean? But then like the next day we were playing a playoff game anyway, so it was over. You know what I mean? You just got to move on. It's what it is.
It's over.
Yeah.
Life moves on.
Yeah. Like that's something hard to learn as a young kid, especially in when you're trying to I mean, these kids are trying to celebrate everything, which I love. You know what I mean? Like, you got to celebrate the good stuff. You know, we talk about sellies all the time. You know, a lot of times I say sellies to like 13 and 14-year-old kids, and they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, oh, don't you know this? Like, what is this?
Yeah, let's go.
I saw a video of this. I think this is Manny's idea, but it's my little theory on this right in here. I think this is from the heart on the Peter Seeker.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
You know what I mean? I didn't put that together until the other day because, like, you know,
right away.
Yeah, for sure. I thought that was great. I think that's a super cool thing.
Yeah.
But if you're not paying attention, you wouldn't know. You know what I mean? You got to really understand the game to get to that point. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, okay. Let's do the obvious one. I love this one too. If you could go back, right, in college, high school, whatever level that you feel like is the beginning of where I feel like this. I like this question. Like, if you could go back to when you decided to take it serious, because there's a difference, right? Like, even the kids we see now, like a lot of kids are serious, but they're not serious until they get to the field. They're still not even serious until they like get in front of the coach and the coach starts telling them what to do. You know what I mean? Like, then they turn it on and then they try to be good. We've seen those type of players, you know, at the higher levels that, you know, a lot of people think you can't turn it on. I totally think you can. I think it's like a whole different savage mindset. That
for sure.
It might even take like putting your cleats on and like putting your armor on. Like I've heard some guys talk about, like, you know, back in the days, you're putting your helmet on, you're putting your shoulder, you're getting your, you know, and you're going to battle. And that's kind of what it's like, getting in the dugout, putting your stirrups on, putting your pants on.
The clubhouse,
Right, exactly. I got to put my gear on and get ready to battle, you know?
So what was the question?
I'm sorry. The question was if you could go back and give yourself any advice to when you considered serious. Right. What age would you be when you would give yourself the advice, and what would be the message?
I would say 9 years old, and I would say.
Hold on. Can you cut out when you said that? Can you start over and we'll edit it?
Right. I would say I would go back to my 9-year-old self, and
I'm sorry, I meant to cut you off again. One thing that I just remembered right now, will you halfway repeat the question? It makes it better for the clip. So, like, the question was, if you could, here, we'll start over. And then, like, you start with, like, just repeating part of the question and then just go into your answer. Okay.
Right.
If you could go back and give yourself advice to when you started taking it serious, what age would you be and what would be that message?
Right. So if I can go back and give myself some advice for when I was really serious, it would definitely be when I was about 9 years old, because that was like my first taste of all-stars. Yeah, I had eight-year-old tournament of champions, but I felt like 9-year-old all-stars. That was like my first taste of real serious baseball, and that was also my first year of travel ball. But it would be get in the best shape of your life, get as fast and strong as possible, and throw the ball as hard as you can. Right? It wasn't back then. I was always told just be a good hitter, be a good hitter, be a good hitter. Right? Especially because I was always on the shorter end, and I probably wasn't going to be a really tall and big guy. But there are still other tools that I could have really focused on developing and really set myself up to be an undeniable prospect. Right? I thought I was always a really good hitter, hit 340 a plus wherever I went. And I was fast, I was strong, I had a good arm, but I was never the fastest guy on the field. I never had the best arm in the field. I never had the most juice on the field, but I always felt like I was the best hitter on the field. But if I had one of those things, which probably would have been my speed and my arm, right? Obviously not the most juice, I can accept that. But if I focused on that from 9 to 18 and got my metrics to where I was an MLB prospect, then I would have set myself up for like to be in a better position than I am now. Right. And then the skill can come. You have your whole life to work on skill. Right. And this is kind of like a thought that I've had, recently, especially for pitchers, right? It's like, can you throw your pitches for strikes? Right. If the answer is yes, all right, boom, you have enough skill. Right. Now it's like, how can you throw harder, get nastier pitches? And really, just throw harder and make them nastier. And that's training. Right. If you can throw your pitches for strikes, boom, there, you have enough skill. You have enough. So might as well work on getting your arm stronger and throwing harder. That same thing, like, can you catch a barrel on different pitches? Like, okay, you can do that. All right, now run faster, throw the ball harder, and then go face better pitches. And that's kind of what I've been doing now.
Love it. I love it. Yeah, it's 9 years old is such a unique number right there. You know, I mean, even in my story right there, like I said, I don't even think I considered it serious until 12.
Yeah.
But like I said, I'm older than you, and the game that I grew up on is completely different than what it is now. You know, like it was golf, basically. Act like you've been there before. And that's like the most boring version, you know?
Yeah. But what if you haven't, you know?
Oh, dude, I remember exactly. I remember getting to the highest level I got to in Mexico, like getting to winter ball, getting to the big leagues, and being there. And I remember like first save. And I remember this one freaking teammate. Is all I'm gonna say. Teammate, just like giving me shit about it. He's like, "What is this your first save?" I'm like, "At this level, on this team, in this situation, and I threw 7 pitches." Yeah. Sorry, dude. Sorry, I got excited about a 7-pitch save. It was great. Didn't strike anybody out. It was fine. Strike 1, roll over. Strike 2, like, come on, man. You know, I always want, and the vibe here too, like, I always want the vibe to reflect the supportive. I really like the MMA side of how a lot of the coaches and teams go out and they go watch the guys play and they go support them and you know, everybody's there for them. You know, those are the guys you end up playing for inside of it too. Like I've told you the whole time, Bauer shortstop he had right now, Harper Gamboa, he was one of the nicest humans to me that I've ever had and as a teammate. And I just root for that guy. Every time that guy goes and plays, like I just saw that dude and I'm like, dude, this guy's the nicest guy in the world. Took me to dinner for no other reason with him, his wife, because he knew that I was in his city. I was in Mexico City with him. And he was like, hey, I want you to come to dinner with me. Okay, thank you. You just don't see that very much anymore. You know, you don't see that cohesive thing, just like we were talking about, you know, going to the steakhouse and all this stuff the other night, you know, and like putting those experiences to work are things that really just grow the culture of what it is. And I'm sure, you know, you and I have talked about cultures out there on the East Coast, and I'm very aware of a lot of those cultures. And some of them get it, some of them don't. But they still, you know, a lot of these people, unless you've been there, what are you gonna do?
Right. Yeah, one thing I learned this year, especially like, you know, being around a pro setting and, you know, people kind of talk about, you know, the revolving door that baseball is. Like people get cut, released, traded all the time. So people kind of hold back from connecting with their teammates or the people around them. But I think it should be the opposite, right? Even if you're only there for a week or a short time, you should try to connect with the people around you because those relationships and connections are like the only thing that can outlast everyone's baseball career, right? And then those are the things that you remember. It's not the losses that you had or the wins that you had. It's like the people that you're there doing it with. And, you know, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, when everyone who was around me is done playing, like if we can still connect on those things, then that's what would be worth it. Not staying to myself and trying really hard to, you know, win this baseball game, right? Which will matter, but like what you really remember are the people and the connections that you made. And me going to the East Coast, right? I was able to do that. You know, it took me a little bit, but now I have really close friends everywhere I go, just because I've been able to connect with people who you know are on the same vibe as me, have same mindset, kind of on the same path, and you know those are the things that I hold on to.
Yeah, I agree. Like those relationships, ours, you know, like I don't know when I'm ever going to see you again. You know what I mean? But I know I'm going to see you. Right, that's what I'm saying. But like, I know. But the point is more of like, I know I'm going to see you, right? And it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like we're going to work some stuff. We're going to do right. But like, and I'm sure there's going to be plenty of opportunities. But that's just kind of how life goes with people in the baseball world, right? Like sometimes there's clouds in the sky and sometimes there's not. It's just what it is. People rotate in and out. I think that's 100% accurate inside of that. So, yeah. Well, I think this is great to start. A little 30-minute-er. I think we knocked it out. Is there anything
I do
else
have one. Yeah, I think I have one question for you.
Okay,
and so it could go back to, you know, early days. It could be somewhere more recent. But where did you see like the real shift in your throwing journey? Right. You know, we talk about you had like not too many people know this about you is that you broke your elbow and you got back, and that's when you really learned how to throw. So kind of like take us through that, either before, during, and after, and what really made you like level up your throwing and made you the thrower that you are right now.
Okay. Well, here's my answer is let's see. So we'll start off. First of all, when I was in high school, I didn't know I wanted to play professional baseball. I thought I wanted to play college baseball because that's kind of what was in front of me. I didn't realize that when you're trying to play college baseball, you actually are trying to play pro baseball. That's actually what you're doing, because that's the style. You don't realize it, but then you're like, oh, you go to one summer ball situation where you don't have to go to class and all you have to do is go to the ballpark. It's just like, oh, this is pro ball. You can go from there. So after I got hurt, I remember it just didn't make sense to me from what the doctors told me. They told me I broke a bone in my elbow throwing. They told me I may never throw again. And then they told me that they don't have anybody that they have worked with that has come back from this type of break to full strength. And that was a bummer. Right. And the more and more I thought about it, the more and more I was like, well, I felt like I was robbed in my senior year because like I was really good for what I thought I was really good. I just executed really good. I wasn't very good as far as what the numbers were because we weren't radaring anything. But I executed in some games, and I knew I could pitch at the level that I could. And I remember arguing with my pitching coach about all kinds of stuff, things that didn't make sense. And like literally almost every time I worked with him, it didn't work. So I was like frustrated with, I felt like I played a game in college that it didn't work. Like I knew the strategy didn't work. And so after going to the doctors and then pretty much in 2 years not being able to throw, I could not throw for 2 years. I tried a rehab. I couldn't throw. The first time they told me that after I did all the rehab on the 2 screws got put in my elbow, when I start throwing, it still hurts, but it hurts in a different spot. And I'm not even throwing hard. So then I go back and I tell them, look at the MRI. And they're like, well, it looks like you got some nerve damage. You need a couple more tests, come back. Yeah, your neck, your wrist. None of those things make sense now, knowing what I know. But they decide to move the nerve, which is probably the best thing to do. So they go back, they move the nerve to get some stress off of it. I start throwing again. The whole time here, I am watching video and trying to figure out this question. Why are there people like Greg Maddux that throw for 17 years, full seasons, and they're not hurt? What's going on? What is happening? This is the thing. And this is like, while I was, this is in 2009, 1997 to like 2008 is like a 10-year window. That's like the steroid era. All of a sudden, dudes are throwing 85 to 90, and then now everybody's throwing 90 to 95. There is a 10-mile-an-hour jump in the league, okay? Right. It's very obvious. I can see it. Everybody can see it. Bonds is hitting bombs. And I start going like, I was told my whole life it's location and movement. And then I'm watching the best guys in the world not do that. Yep. And so I'm like, it's got to be velo. And then I start thinking about it. And I'm like, why would someone sign me to a contract if I'm not throwing hard enough? Right. So that my first thought was that. And so after I got healthy, there's just like basic information. You got like Jaeger long toss stuff, Paul, God, what's that guy's name? Paul, it doesn't matter. Anyway, but he's selling a 90-mile-an-hour course. Those are like the only things you out there. So you could watch this video of Trevor Bauer throw the ball goalpost to goalpost and then throw it in front of a radar gun on a shuffle fire throwing 100. And you're like, well, that's crazy. Never seen that before. And so that kind of inspired the like, well, what else are people doing? And like, how are they throwing? And so I just started going down the rabbit hole in the internet and started just like Googling questions, finding other people out there that were doing stuff. And when I started throwing and I was able to start long tossing again, I remember there's a field back at home that there was a, like before you even had a sock net that as a pitcher, like sock nets were for hitting. Like there was a sock net that you would hit off the tee and it was a hitting net. It wasn't a throwing net. Like you didn't put it anywhere. Well, this field, this high school field had a sock net. And so I was long tossing into the sock net by myself. And I realized that if I could just put buckets out, that I could just do my own throwing program. I didn't have it. There wasn't like 90 feet. They didn't give me shit. These guys didn't give me anything. The Doctors literally fixed my elbow and then told me to figure it out. These are the best doctors in the world. Like, we don't know anything about throwing. You can go over here and pay $2,000 for our Sports Performance Institute if you want to learn how throwing. I was like, no, absolutely not. I don't. First of all, you told me I'd never throw again, and now you want me to pay to teach me how to do it. So I'll figure it out. So I did. I just started going back to some stuff that I was looking at, and I remember this is like beginning when Aroldis Chapman videos started coming out about him in Cuba. And so I just started seeing him reach down and I started reaching down. And then when I started doing that and started throwing, like when I threw the traditional swing up way and got my fingers up, when I would long toss, it wouldn't make it. I would miss.
Yep.
And so when I would reach lower, like I was in the outfield, that's what I thought about, because I followed Vlad Guerrero Sr. and I would go watch videos of Vlad Guerrero Sr. in the throw. He would reach all the way down to his knee. So if I reached down to my knee, I could throw it from left center field to the sock net on the line as if it was a throwing partner. So that was like my first, like, okay, let's just do this. And as I went, it's just started making more sense to me, where I was just like, well, I need to know how hard I was throwing. So I remember I bought a radar gun from Stalker. It was like $1,000. There's no screen. There wasn't anything. It was just a radar gun. And I remember being like, how in the hell am I going to figure out? And I had a recall button. So I would set the radar gun up. I'd throw it. After I'd long toss, I'd come in, all right, I want to see how hard I can throw from, like, I don't know, 200 feet away. And I'd throw it as hard as I can. And after I throw it, I throw 3 throws. I knew that 3 throws, the recall would memorize the last 3 throws. I'm like, all right, so I'd throw 3 balls as hard as I can. I'd go in there, I'd click it, and it'd be like 80. And I'm like, Jesus, this is terrible. This is awful. And I just kept doing that for a while. And then I remember one day I hit 95 on a shuffle. And I was like, well, I got to be throwing close to it. And so then I just decided to go jump into a men's league and throw. And then that was like the first time that I was like, I was just throwing fastballs and just blowing it by dudes. And they were like, dude, who are you? And I was like, nobody. I'm trying to figure it out. And like, figure it out. So I end up like going the other way because I'm a psychopath, playing short, leading off, pitching. That's like what I went for, in my adult league stuff from around there. So yeah, man, that was probably the first time where it's like, as I'm rehabbing, as I'm coming back, there was a lot of information. And then to me, it was just health. Like, I just didn't want my arm to hurt. Because I used to be able to, like, I remember in college when I was throwing hard and I didn't know it, I was long tossing with this guy from the University of Miami, and we had a Superman logo for a field. So center field was the shortest part. It was the weirdest field I've ever been on. But it was a football field. And me and this dude used to go end zone to end zone like 2 or 3 times a week. And I remember, like, my teammates were all like, dude, how far are you throwing? I was like, I don't know. But I know that I'm not at the pole, and he's not at the pole either. And I'm going to try to throw the ball all the way over there. I could probably go on Google Maps and mark it out now. But and so remembering that I could still do it, and then understanding that it was like a broken bone and it didn't make sense. And then, like, as I'm figuring out throwing based on health and distance, like, put it all together, and I was like, all right, well, let's see what can happen. And then from there, then I was able to, like, throw some bullpens at high school. I remember the first bullpen I threw, like, after, like, I felt like I should just build up my arm. I don't know why. I was just like, well, I need to build it up. You got to throw. Like, that's the only thing I haven't been able to do. And just, like, headphones in, dude, just throwing. Just headphones in, throwing by yourself for hours and days. And, eventually I put a ball in a tee and dragged that heavy, giant metal sock net by where the catcher was in this one bullpen and just, like, threw at it for hours. And I'm sure that's probably how I learned how to mentally throw 169 pitches like I did the other day, because, like, I wasn't counting shit, dude. I wasn't counting anything. I was just up there trying to knock the damn ball off the tee, and I had, like, I knew I had, like, 3 or 4 buckets of baseballs, but, like, I wasn't going to count them. Like, there was 50 or 60 in each bucket. I don't know. I threw 200 baseballs. And then I would go home and get back on the internet and look at video and things that I've collected and stuff. And then, like, people on the internet be like, if you throw 100 pitches, like, you're going to be hurt. I'm like, like, what's going on? Like, this is weird. How come they're saying I never throw again? I broke my elbow, and now I can throw more than what I did before. And just to your point, what we were talking about, I think skill development, the ability to not take no for an answer, to keep going, to figure it out. And now, like, I tell kids, when I throw, like I did, like I just talked about, like, I haven't changed what I am doing in, like, 14 years. And it is by far the most easiest thing in the world. Like, Phil Mickelson knows his golf swing to the point where if he misses a shot, as he rarely does, he knows exactly why based on where it goes. And like, that's pitching. That's exactly what pitching is, being aware of those things. So,
sweet. Love it.
Was that a good answer?
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, cool.
Well, shoot, thanks for having me. This was great. I'm looking forward to unveiling more stories about each other, and then not just past stories, but what we're doing currently and then what we have planned for the future. And I'm just hope that people can really learn from this and really learn from us, because that's, I feel like we have a lot to offer and just through our personal experience, and I can't wait to just share with everybody.
So that brings me to the final piece that I want to talk about before we go, which is the conversation that you and I want to start. That is the synonym for the word Discord. Brad and I have started a little bit of a Discord, and what we want to do with this is anything that you guys find that we want to debate about, right? Like anybody that was join this Discord, it's a free Discord. We're going to be putting the podcast, we're going to be putting other videos that we find on the internet, Instagram, YouTube, stuff like that we want to talk about, because that's what we do. We send stuff back and forth to each other, and I feel like we want to open up that process that we do to some other people that may want to have opinions and stuff. I see it all the time on Twitter, aka X, and like recently I've been going in and just like popping in and saying things on people's stuff, like when I see things. So, we're going to be doing that a little bit more. And as you guys know, like Berto and I love to challenge the process. And that's kind of what brought us to this point. And that's why we wanted to do this podcast. And, the conversation that we like to have is far more entertaining than like, are you doing it right? You know what I mean? Like our conversations are just, that's a piece of it. You know what I mean? Like there's mechanics, there's strategy, there's timing, visual, there's all kind, deception. There's so many buckets of things that go into the decision process of what happens in the game. And we just don't see there's a lot of people that are actually doing it correctly.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm excited. I'm excited to just be connected with the people who are following us, and like use this for me as a way to stay connected to the people in San Diego and the following that we built there and the clientele that we built there. And then, as I go to other places, and as I meet more people and connect with more people and just kind of bring them in on what we're doing, that way we can, share it to everybody else, because that way we can, do our part in moving the game forward.
I agree, dude. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure this is going to turn into a traveling roadshow, as you and I would love for that to happen.
Yeah, for sure. ABCA 2025, for sure. We'll start with there.
Yes, that's going to be by you. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. You just reminded me. I got to figure that out.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's probably time to start looking at flights and hotels. And oh my God, am I really getting? It's going to be snowing. It's like DC, it snows. Like I'm going to be pissed off.
We'll be driving a Honda Civic.
Oh, dude, like just like we went to Chicago when it's snowing. I was just like, ugh. Anyway. All right, dude. Appreciate it. Love you. Talk to you soon. This was great. I thought this was really easy.
Yeah.
I'm going to download it and then I'll put it into Dropbox and we'll see what we can do from there. All right.
Cool. All right. See ya.
See ya.